Cool. We're here.
Yay!
All
There was an
right.
error.
Hmm?
I have an error in my control room.
Oh boy.
Oh, okay. That's working now.
Yes.
I see you
Okay.
normally.
I'm getting very happy with Google Hangouts these days. It's getting more and more user-friendly and pretty dynamic. I like how it bounces back and forth, and yeah, YouTube's doing some cool things lately.
That's pretty handy.
Yeah. How are you? I haven't talked to you in a while.
I'm good. How are you? I'm
Doing
good. How are
well, doing
you?
well. Other than it being a very rainy day in Hiroshima, I don't mind.
It's storming in Chicago right now.
Huh. On the other side of the world.
Yep. It was a beautiful day, though. One of the first nice days this year. So that
You've
was
had
nice.
a really hard year, haven't you?
Been the worst. It has literally been the worst winter I can remember.
Polar vortexes all around.
Absolutely awful. Trees are first starting to turn green. It's almost the middle of May.
Jeez, that's pretty
Yeah.
late.
I remember on St. Patrick's Day 2 years ago it was 80 degrees, and I don't think it's been above 75 yet this year. But
What,
summer's here, so that's exciting.
yeah.
And this will be my first summer in Chicago, so I'm looking forward to that.
How long have you been in Chicago?
About 2 months.
Oh, wow, that's not very long at all. Where were you
Yep.
before that?
Northeast Wisconsin.
Okay.
I was there
And
for the
you,
last year and a half, and before that I was in Madison.
okay. And you've been traveling a lot too, recently.
Yes, I think that I've been to 3 or 4 countries in the last year, which is
Wow.
pretty good.
Taiwan, right?
Taiwan, Singapore, and I will be in Denmark next week. And
Denmark's an
also,
awesome country.
we went to rural Alaska, which I'm going to count as a different country because that was a very, very unique experience.
Was this all for your company?
Yep, we all of those were for the City X project, which is like a 3D printing workshop that we do with kids. And so that's been going really well, actually. We just released, a couple weeks ago, we released a free toolkit for teachers, it's downloadable kind of curriculum and lesson plan for teachers to run this workshop. It's about 6 hours of lesson plans that they can do whether they have a 3D printer or not, but it's all about designing and inventing and 3D modeling.
That's really cool. And how'd you get into that?
What? We started it, I was around when it started, but it was a friend's idea, actually. So right now, IdeaCo is 3 people. It's me, Brett Schilke, and Libby Falk is her name. She lives, and she kind of came up with this idea to do something useful with 3D printers in schools because they were starting to show up, but teachers couldn't really do anything with them apart from just print trinkets. And we started to test out different workshops in a school in Wisconsin to kind of get the kids modeling and see how we could have them invent stuff, and ended up building a story around it, and it kind of grew from there.
What's
That was December of 2012.
the kids make a story about the thing that they invent with a
No,
3D printer?
so the story of the workshop is that humans are settling a new planet, and they're building the first city there. It's called City X, and all they have with them is a 3D printer. So every student is paired with a citizen of City X, so we have like trading cards kind of with a face on them and a little description of the character. And every character has a problem that needs to be solved, and they all kind of fall under like environmental concerns or safety concerns or health concerns. There's 8 different categories, and the students, the kids, have to come up with an invention that through like the Stanford D School design process, but adapted for kids. And we walk them through kind of brainstorming, and then it gets into designing, 3D modeling, and eventually 3D printing a prototype of their invention.
Kids being what age group?
3rd through 6th grade.
Third through sixth grade.
But what I want to talk about, though, is actually not the storytelling for that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different program that we're doing this summer for the second time. It's called Exponential Youth Camp, and we're doing it in partnership with Singularity University. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them,
Mm-mm.
but they're a part graduate studies program, part business accelerator. Um, Before last year, all they've ever worked with were graduate students and corporate executives. And what they are is a company that's all about exponential technology and solving human grand challenges. So they have these kind of areas that have to do with human challenges, things like water, environment, health-related causes. And they're at the NASA Research Park in Mountain View by the Google offices. And
Okay.
they were co-founded by some very large tech companies like Google and Autodesk and Genentech and Nokia. So their whole thing is integrating exponential technology into solving humanity's challenges, basically. But they also launch companies out of it. So usually throughout the program, so it's like an 8-week summer program for graduate students, and they learn about all these different things. They speak to super cool people, awesome technology people and futurists, and they start to form companies that they oftentimes keep working on. And then Singularity also has like a venture capital program where they'll actually run companies through their offices in Mountain View. And last year we piloted a high school program for them that kind of piggybacked off of the graduate studies program. So it was high school students kind of tagging along to a lot of those lectures and activities. And then we were moderating some other workshops for those high school students, but it was only 5 students. And this year we're going to have up to 30.
Hmm. If you hear any crazy sirens,
I hear siren, but
there's
it's
the
not that
ambulance,
loud.
and it's hilarious because they like project with a megaphone the whole time, like excuse me, I'm so sorry, excuse me. It's pretty funny. Okay,
Not
so
here. I live
this.
across the street from a hospital, and there are sirens all the time. They
Oh,
don't say "excuse
jeez.
me" or "I'm sorry."
um, so the high school students, that program is sort of like a tag-on of the graduate students 8-week program,
Yep.
and there used to be 5 and now there's 30, and they have their own workshops, and then they also just get to like see what's going on with this bigger program.
Yeah, it's up to 30 students. So it's 5 weeks this summer. They're learning about a lot of it is kind of exposure. So they get to learn about these challenges. They get to see some incredible speakers from different companies and they get to work with like hands-on with a lot of different technologies like 3D printing and stuff like that. There's also internships incorporated, possibly with NASA, with like 3D Systems, which is a 3D printer manufacturer, and some other companies like this. So there's a lot going on. But the idea is that it's very hands-on, and the kids are all going to kind of pick their own area of expertise that they're going to focus on. So it could be something like biotechnology or like medicine and neuroscience, digital fabrication, things like that. Whatever. After they have like kind of a sampling of everything, whatever most appeals to them. And then for the next year, they're basically going to be youth ambassadors for Singularity University, kind of working with students in their own schools, possibly being a resource for students in other high schools around the world on these topics.
Wow. And these are clearly like high achieving students, right?
Yeah, usually. Usually quite very, very, very smart kids.
Do they have to apply to get into this program?
Yeah.
And what do they have to present certain things like a portfolio, or what evidence do they have to present in their application in order to get picked?
To be honest, I don't know the exact details of the application because that's all being handled by Singularity University.
Okay.
So we're not selecting the candidates. We're kind of coordinating the curriculum, but not actually choosing the students.
Okay.
Does
I'm
that make
curious
sense?
because what you with the whole digital part and what kids would create could have a lot to do with what they already have shown they value, like having some sort of online footprint of their contributions, ideas, what they do.
Right.
Okay, coordinating the curriculum.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll obviously learn a bit about them as they kind of come in.
So is there, what do they know about the curriculum before they go in? Is there anything established yet, or is it a blank slate for you?
Just in terms, like, what kind of impression do they have of what they'll be doing?
Mm-hmm.
They have kind of a breakdown, like there's a visual breakdown on the application that kind of shows what each week looks like. And they know, so there's like a field trip every other week. There are hours set aside every week for mentorships, and there's hours set aside every week for internships. And then there's large blocks of kind of lectures and activities that they'll do together. So every week is kind of broken down into learning one way or another through lectures or activities, intern mentorships.
Sounds like a good program.
We're very excited. It was awesome last year, and we're really excited to expand it this year. It's still a pilot program. This is only the second year that we've done it, so we're still kind of trying things out. But I think we have a much better sense of what we're doing this year.
And then are the topics all figured out before you even get there by Singularity? Like the ones that the speakers talk about, the topics that the speakers talk about, the field trips that you go on, is that already predetermined?
Yes, yeah. So basically, I can read you, it's 5 weeks, I'll just read you like the huge overview pretty quick.
Okay.
The first week is kind of just learning about innovation, and I know that's very vague, but that one is a lot of kind of adapting from lectures that are happening for the graduate program. The second week is learning about the grand global challenges that I was talking about before.
Mm-hmm.
The third week is kind of just generally called synthesis, so it's kind of taking the challenges you learned about and some of the people and technology that you learned about and starting to combine that into ideas for actually solving problems. Mm-hmm. The fourth week is prototyping. So at that point, students have kind of figured out what their area of focus is and what they want to do. And then the last one is kind of called, it's called Future Forward, but it's basically kind of finalizing a project that they were working on, doing advisor meetings. There's proposals if they want to keep working on stuff after this, and also giving talks to the rest of the Singularity University community, kind of a TED-style conference.
The kids give presentations.
Yes, they do.
Neat. So they need to figure out a dynamic way to present their idea.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Which
yeah.
is
So it's that's obviously. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that's a huge end product that they have to look forward to, that they have to build skills in order to get to, right?
Right. So that's a huge part of it. And then last year we didn't do very much of this, but we'd really like to share the students' stories as they're going through the program. So we're going to set up a subdomain on the IdeaCo website that'll basically be a separate blog for the students. So we'll try to get them posting, twice a week or whatever it is, talking about their experiences and things that they're learning about. And we really want to focus on kind of engaging other audiences in their experiences. So I really want to focus on photography and even videography. I have a couple ideas for that. But the reason I wanted to talk to you is because I know that you've done stuff like this with your students, and I would love to hear some ideas for getting the students really interested and, engaged in it. Because I don't want to make it feel like something extra they have to do, because they'll have a lot going on, and I want it to be valuable, and I want it to be fun, and I want to really drive home the value in like sharing the story and building that kind of media database for themselves and not just for us.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, that's the trick. That's stuff that we're still learning, but I've definitely learned some things over the course of these last 3 years with regard to having students share their learning, demonstrate their learning to an external audience. A question with this subdomain and the media being created from the students' voices and into that space, is it your company's task to proofread that, process that into really good web content, or is it the kids who totally have to have the skills to make their stuff presentable and finished?
We will be doing some of it. Certainly, I'll be handling the blog, so I'll be proofreading and such. But we would like to have the kids kind of as polished as they can be, and it doesn't have to be perfect. When I say videos, I'm thinking like short, up to a minute long, videos that they put together about some experience that they had or some workshop that they did, things like that. So nothing. I mean, I don't expect it to be like beautiful journalism, and a lot of the things will be short. I just kind of want to keep audiences engaged, and more importantly, the students engaged with sharing what they're doing as they're doing it.
Okay.
Does that kind of make sense?
Do the kids all come in with the same kind of toolkit? Like, do they all have smartphones? Do they all have computers? Or
yeah, they'll all. I mean, I would think they all have smartphones. I did want to talk about possible apps. If you have any suggestions for things that kids could use, there's a video app called Spark Camera. I'm not sure if you've heard of it or seen it. It was designed by IDEO, which is a really large design agency. And I've used it before, and I love it because it's so simple. It's just kind of a touch and hold on your screen to record, and then it 45 seconds. But you can edit within the app and just kind of rearrange clips and add music. So it's like a very, very streamlined, simple, efficient way to share brief experiences, or even just really condense longer experiences. And I'm thinking about kind of buying that app for every student. Mm-hmm. I'd like to use, we have a hashtag for this that we can use if they're tweeting, but I don't know exactly what every student's going to have. Like, we're not giving them laptops. Obviously, they'll all be working with something, but I don't know exactly what the situation is going to be for every student.
Okay. And the students sharing their stories as they go through the program, that is the motivation for that marketing?
Partially. We are trying to do a lot more sharing generally while we have programs going on. It's been difficult because we're only 3 people. Part of it's marketing. Part of it is to better explain what this program is, because you can probably tell as I talk about it, there's so much happening that it's a little difficult to condense. Mm-hmm. And because it's still a pilot, we really want to be able to, next year, for example, explain what students will experience and what they can expect, and kind of show them what that looks like.
Okay. Speaking of apps, I just thought of one that is a quick way to tell a visual story, and it requires an iPad, so it's only for those who have iPads, but it's called Adobe Voice. Have you heard of it?
I have not.
It's pretty interesting. It has, when you open it up, it says, all right, let's start a story, and then it says record some line of audio. So you could say, this is my story about bugs. This was my first example on it. This is my story about bugs. And so it records that couple-second line of audio, and then it asks you to put in an image, put it in like an icon, and it has this huge pool of icons to choose from. And I typed in bugs, and tons of really cool bug icons pop up, and then it adds that animated icon dropping into the frame as you're saying the audio that you recorded, and then that's a frame. That's like one little frame of the story, and then it like bounces out nicely, and then it comes into the next line of audio and visual that you'd like to show. And if you look up Adobe Voice online or on your iPad, it'll have like a video that explains how to do this, and It says at the very end that this video was made in 8 minutes with this app. So it's quite a quick turnaround process, which is always difficult for students. Either they have they're like all over the place and they can't just finish something because they always think they can go back to it and they have all the time in the world, but they don't. They need something that's like quick, looks good, is simple enough, and then they can demonstrate their learning there. So that can be a really interesting way for your students to break down process, or maybe tell a story behind the thing that they prototyped,
Mm-hmm.
and it could be an interesting visual for their actual presentations.
That sounds awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna look that up.
That I totally got courtesy of one of my students, because that's one of the coolest things about um, teaching this stuff. When you, I guess, with the motivation that you have for sharing the stories and demonstrating learning, um, you have to explain that to the kids really well and let them know it from a conceptual level, like why we want to
Mm-hmm.
share our learning, why we want to share their learning to an external audience. And if they really get that and know all the different media that they have to translate that experience in, then they're also really adept, or yeah, they're really good at finding those ways of communicating, like finding those apps like Adobe Voice. That was totally brought to me by a student. Um,
So how do you, with your students, get them excited about doing that, and how do you demonstrate the value in doing that?
um, Part of it is, well, often they don't realize the value until someone actually consumes their content and like comments on it, or they see it get tweeted by someone, by anyone in the world. That's when they finally realize the value. But also when they look back, which in a 5-week program you don't have a lot of hindsight working for you. But that's usually when they really get the value. You can tell them all you want, but if it has to come from them.
Right.
But one of the things that we talk about, which is another thing that you have to own and know without people just telling you, is that this is such a special program. We are the 1% of 1% of 1% of people in the world who get to work at or go to a traveling nomadic high school. And
Right.
that specialness and that responsibility that we all have because we are a part of it is supposed to be fuel for us to translate those experiences to other people who don't get that opportunity to learn from a place. And a lot of the things that we learn are so motivating, and the people that we get to come in contact with are so inspiring that you want to provide that learning opportunity for someone else. So
Mm-hmm.
I think this also sounds like a really exclusive opportunity that hopefully other students around the world could also benefit from, because you want more people to know about it, and hopefully have a larger pool to choose from next year of
Right.
applicants. And also that students around the world can somehow reap the benefits of this program, even if they can't be there, because then that just helps create ambassadors for the program.
Right.
Um, Plus, we all love learning, and learning is just becoming, or education is becoming more and more free, and because everyone just can share.
Mm-hmm.
So I think especially in that first week when you're talking about innovation and you have so many visionaries and lecturers and futurists talking, it could be a great opportunity to talk to your students about the value of the information that they're getting from this opportunity, and how special it is, and how not only should it be chronicled for their own reference back when they leave, and all of this is said and done, it also makes for great evidence for their own experience and education as a lifelong learner, as a student, and they can put it in a digital portfolio or in some sort of space that shows that I studied along with, or I learned along with these visionaries, and got to
Right.
do an innovative program with them. But then also we're hoping to tap into a network of learners around the world and students around the world just like you, who didn't get an opportunity to come here but are really interested in the world of design and 3D printing, and looking into the future and seeing what problems we can solve with this new technology, and with any kind of technology that makes huge impact on the world's biggest problems. I think you have a lot of, because of the nature of the program, I think you have a lot going for you. And also the 5-week program is just the right amount of time, I think, to help students build skills and an understanding of this opportunity, and not kind of burn out. Because we get a
Right.
lot of, we get like ebb and flow of appreciation or gratitude or awareness or perspective of what we're doing here. You know, you get homesickness, you get all sorts of things that are also going on. And one of your benefits of your program is that you don't have like 10 other things going on at the same time. So our students, while they are getting some great opportunities to learn from the world and to learn from different visionaries and to come up with a project, they also have like 12 other projects that they're working on at the same time in all their other classes and all the other clubs that they do. So that focus is really nice for your program and can hopefully give the students a better sense of what they're aiming toward, and then give them some sort of reasonable expectation to document along the way, all leading up to a dynamic presentation, as well as great evidence for themselves to project like on a portfolio online or in some sort of space. I mean, a quick question is, whatever ideas they come up with, you know, in that third, fourth, and fifth week, do those become owned by the Singularity University, or is it IP
No, I don't believe so, not in any way. I mean, obviously, people who have gone through like the graduate studies program and come up with ideas have come to be SU Labs companies, but no, they're not. I don't believe there's anything in their contract that would say that they have ownership of those ideas.
Okay, because that's great.
I'll double check on that, but I've never gotten that impression before.
Okay, that's a huge selling point for the documentation to the students, that they have real potential to make something amazing, and if they don't document it along the way, then they won't have as much to show for that great idea and what they could do for it after this. Let's see.
That's a very, very good point.
I'm wondering what. I'm sure you'll probably get kids coming from all different skill sets. You'll have kids who have blogs that they maintain daily, or maybe they love vlogs and they love watching people talk on camera, and they would love to do that too, but they never have, or whatever. I wonder how you can find out certain kids' skill set, or how they like to process their experiences or document their learning, and what you can do in order to streamline that process. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, so basically how do we determine how to cater to the students' interests and skill sets in terms of sharing stories, probably? Mm-hmm. So like, yeah, I think once, probably even before orientation happens, it would be helpful for us to send out like even a brief survey or something that just kind of says, you know, what technology have you used? Are you familiar with? Do you like to use? Because I'm sure some students will like care a lot about writing and not at all about making videos, and obviously we should play to their strengths, and you know, every student will be a little bit different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, I've found that supporting the different media types more in concept rather than in just application or manifestation really helps to find that method of communication that kids like best, and then really work and capitalize on that. So I have one girl who loves vlogging but can't stand writing. So anytime she needs to demonstrate her learning, she does it in a vlog. There are other people who absolutely love blogs, and they like the cleanness of it. They don't need any media. There are some people that need photos to do all the talking for them. So, and then you'll also probably have some who can play with the audio medium really well, because they can grab sound bites from lectures or turn it into a bit more of like a weekly broadcast, or a weekly, some sort of, not talk show, but some sort of audio podcast where they can explain the interesting ideas of the week and the development of an idea. So the way that I structure my class is once they get sorted with their technology and know what apps that we have as like our basic toolkit, then we start with written, because that requires like the least amount of technical skill, just write words on the screen, and then the blogging format, which you guys can probably take care of, or maybe they already know innately, but it's short paragraphs, are easy to skim through. Hopefully some dynamic media placement so that you can create visuals for people who need more of that kind of communication. But start with written, and then we go to audio because that's just spoken word, and the technical needs are just a little bit more. So using your iPhone or Android or whatever to record sound. I'm sure there are apps, I haven't yet found yet, but I'm sure there are apps for editing audio right on your phone or your iPad or something.
Yeah.
And creating some sort of audio show, audio podcast, taking sound bites from different lecturers and bringing them together and synthesizing into an interesting and digestible piece of media. Then I go to still visual, so that's knowing either how to use photos or graphics, or something we've been playing a lot more with is like infographics and also mind mapping. I've actually been mind mapping while you were talking to me. But mind mapping could be, you could make a really interesting visual during a lecture or as you're developing an idea. And if someone's really good with the paper app, I don't have it with me. You know Paper 53?
The paper app that Facebook released or something else?
No, it's Paper 53.
Paper 53.
Mm-hmm.
I have a list of apps going, so I'll look at that.
Okay, Paper 53 is one that we love here. It has a in the basic free version, you can have, I think, as many notebooks as you want, and you can export them as PDFs, as a group of PDFs or a group of pages, or as an individual page. And if you upgrade a little bit, like for $6, then you get this whole range of brushes, like not just a calligraphy pen, but also a sketching pencil and a watercolor brush, and you can mix colors. And some of my students have done really interesting things with Paper 53 and making notes from lectures, in making mind maps. And then we also use Adobe Illustrator, which that's a little more involved, and it requires like everyone having a certain level of gear. But Paper 53 for an iPad would be a really cool tool to use in order to create a still visual, if that's how students like to process their experiences. Helps people think, can help ideas develop, and it's a really good study skill, and so that might be good to teach some high school students one way.
Yeah, I think there's a couple ways in which an app like that would be valuable for this program. Nothing to do with storytelling, but just processing information.
Yeah, definitely. And it could do both. So you can export it as a PDF, and then you can even, well, let's see. Yeah, you can put it within a blog post, or you could just have a string of another emergency going on down there. But you could have it. You could have like a string of infographics or mind maps over the course of the 5 weeks that could, anyway, you could do some really interesting things with that. So that's written, audio, still visual, and then I move into video because that's usually much more technically, burdensome.
Yep.
But you guys could also skip over that whole technical difficulty by just creating like vlog stations, and have kids who are more inclined to talk to themselves or talk to an unknown audience about what they're learning or what they're developing in a vlog format. That could be one way that you grab a bunch of content that you can quickly process and then post online. Vlogging being simply that you connect with an audience, you have a personality, and you are talking to that little webcam, even though it's just a little dot, but you're really like thinking that there's someone listening, and it also helps you process, if that's like how your brain works, that it has. What are my 3 things for vlogging? I'm such a bad teacher, I don't remember. Hold on. Oh yeah, that they're visual. So if you set up a really nice backdrop, then they'll know that it's like a cool place. They'll look cool in their vlogs.
Right.
All they need to do is to create an outline for their vlog. Like you record as you're thinking, but you have a basic guideline of what you're trying to talk about, so that you don't get lost in thought. Because if you're an external communicative processor, then it's often that you can like take yourself on a tangent. And then to remember your audience, that a vlog is not just to have like some video file of yourself looking at a computer screen and it's weird and you're just a talking head. You know that it's meant to communicate something to a bigger audience. So that if you have vlogging stations and then you just know how to quickly create jump cuts and like kind of shrink and condense all of their talking into more digestible chunks. You know what I mean by jump cuts?
Yeah, yeah.
So if that could be one way to have video content to share from their learning and from their story, to create stories. And if you created some sort of opener or bumper from the workshops or from the program, and then it went at the beginning, and then they had a vlog, then that could be a cool way to do some branding.
Yeah.
Let's see what else. I mean, tweets. There are cool things you can do with tweets, especially if you played with like live tweeting during events or during lectures, during field trips, and then the kids saw their tweets on a screen, or you did something with the tweets. You could do some cool things with a hashtag. I mean, there's stuff like Tagboard. Have you used that?
No, is that like a Twitter visualizer?
Yeah, but it pulls from Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and maybe others. But you can upgrade to the paid version and be able to embed it, but otherwise you can just easily type in your hashtag and it pulls up all the social media posts, and starting from most recent that we've been using recently for our trips. Like we always have a trip hashtag, and if we're on different trips, if like 9s and 10s are on a trip, or 11s and 12s, they could actually go on to, well, if they're mobile, if it's like during the trip, then they can go on Instagram and they can like see what the others are doing and talking about. But then at the end, when you bring it all together, it's all in one nice place. And
so, can you give me an example hashtag that I can look at? I have it up.
You could look at TGS Kyoto.
So, your students, are they primarily sharing stories and information about the travels and experiences? I mean, I know that's what I would gravitate towards, just because I love travel. Or is it about like the content in classes? Because TGS is totally multidisciplinary, right? It's all sorts. It's every subject.
Yeah, it's a regular high school that has a rigorous curriculum, and they move around the world. So there's a lot that you have to process. And I mostly focus with the students on giving them the tools to know there are many different media to communicate in. And once you have experience with all of them, you can really figure out which ones you want to specialize in, which ones work for the way that your brain works and the way that you have skill in connecting with people. And so usually we start with just talking about travel, because that's usually the most accessible thing. They're already inclined to share and kind of translate that to their friends and family. But there's the constant need to demonstrate your learning from the classroom point of view. And then, of course, our classroom and the travel stuff blend all the time. It's a constant blending. They're not two separate topics usually, but for my class, I actually do. Sometimes I'll make an explicit call to work on one media type on one topic, and it could be completely travel based. It could be a blend of that and academics, or it could be purely an academic thing.
Okay.
And sometimes the academic thing is just to show them that this is one way that you can demonstrate your academic understanding, because often you think in old ways of learning, you write a paper or you give like a boring presentation. But these days you can demonstrate your learning with a really amazing interactive infographic, or you could tell a story with a narrative film. So it's all up to their own creativity how they do that. And the more dynamic it is, and the more heart they put into it, usually the longer it's going to be relevant for them. The payoff is much bigger. And that could be something that you would say, like, that goes in your digital portfolio as evidence of your amazing work and your creativity, as well as what you know and how you've taken an opportunity and created something amazing from it and shared it with other people. So do you know what kind of other audiences you're wanting to speak to? What's your demographic or your target audience?
I mean, it varies a little bit, I think, for the different challenge areas. I'm trying to engage other high school students. I mean, of course, as a company that relies on partnerships, we do have an interest in sharing our own company's impact, the impact of programs, and kind of appealing to potential future partners. But for the students, I would like them to kind of think about their peers, because in the future we have a vague plan that we've been working on to actually connect what's happening at SU to local high schools around the world, for kids who can't be there, who can't afford the program, as a way to kind of share knowledge between peers. So I guess, I mean, I don't know who exactly the demographics are going to turn out to be, honestly, because Singularity University is not like a household name. It's several years old, and it's very well known and very well respected in the tech community. But I would like to try to share it more with the younger fields, but maybe don't know how to get into them, or are kind of like intimidated by getting a hold of this technology. So I think one of the most valuable things would be for the students to make these stories for their peers.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, from their perspective, it would also be very valuable to appeal to, like, say, college admissions people, or whoever they want to work with in their fields in the future, if they know who they are.
Yeah. I guess it might also be a really important conversation to have with them at the beginning, along with the reason why you would want to chronicle this experience in a couple different formats. If you have them brainstorm, like, where do your friends or people in your age group find information, and they'll probably say something like Facebook or YouTube or whatever. So if you have them think about not only the people that they're trying to talk to, but how they're trying to talk to them, they might start seeing, like, well, I could make really interesting memes because everyone loves memes on Facebook, or I can make a quick, like, 30-second video because I know that no one watches anything beyond 30 seconds in my age group. Or I always look at infographics because those are really interesting, and if I learned how to make a quick one with Infogram, that's another one to tell you.
I think I've used that one, or one of those. You're talking about like a web service, right?
Yeah, or in visual.ly.
Yep, I have used that one.
Okay.
Do you have one that you like a lot? I honestly don't remember which one. I used one time. But Infogram, right, and then Visually?
Yeah, Infogram is about to have video in beta form, which, if that comes out by the time you have your summer program, that could be really cool. It looks really nice.
Do you maintain, does TGS house any accounts, like blogs or social media accounts for their students, or do the students do that entirely through their own platforms?
Yeah, that's something we've been trying to figure out over the years. We have an educational, what's it called? ELS? I forget what it's called. We have our own network that's called ThinkSpot, and it's something we've built on top of an ELG platform. I don't know all the terminology. Oops. But we have that as our sort of training ground for all kinds of social media, and that's where our classes operate as groups on that network, and each student has a profile, and that's where they can post a bunch of different content types. We have tags in order to bring them all into one place, and that's where a teacher would look at all of the work from their class or their group, and so that's where we start. That's like our baseline, and it's a network that is sort of open to the public. My whole class is open to the public on there, like my new media lab. But some things are more private or just for our community, like because our parents are also able to see the development of their students' learning on there. But then we've also been looking to start moving that work externally facing and also taking it elsewhere. So maybe a student works on a blog for a couple weeks on there and revises it, or is working on a wiki with another student on that page, and then they can take it out to a place where it's more likely to be seen by other people, like a WordPress or anything else. I tell the kids that I can support them much better with WordPress, but I can also help them with like a Weebly or a Wix, but I don't like them as much as I like WordPress. I'm a bit of a dinosaur in that fact, but it's definitely, in my mind, the better platform.
I think so too.
And a free one allows you to do quite a bit. Of course, everyone quickly understands like what they can't do with WordPress free, WordPress.com, and then gets frustrated once they know what they want to create. And for our students, we really we require, as part of their diploma requirements, to make a digital portfolio. And when we were first considering, do we want it to be on Spot or on our own platform or on their own platform, we eventually went with their own because we really want them to own it and to be able to take it away with them. So that's where we landed. All the kids have, it's actually been quite a process because you don't get all students who want to share their learning in the same way. Either they're a little nervous about putting themselves out there and they want it to look perfect, or they don't want to have a digital footprint. But over the course of the last year or two, we've eventually managed to get all the students to have an online space away from our property, and it demonstrates who they are, what they've done in the last 2 to 4 years as a TGS student, and has them project what they've learned that will benefit them in their future careers.
That's awesome.
It's been, yeah, I think it'll be really beneficial once the students actually use them, and you're starting to get students that say, like, I'm trying to get an internship, and they ask me for my resume and like evidence of work, portfolio stuff. And I was like, that's when it comes in handy. It's not going to seem relevant to a high school student until they are asked that question, and then it's like, shoot, I got to work on it really fast. And so that's one of the things that they do in the media lab with me. So
that should be something that Semester at Sea puts more effort into. I
yeah,
feel like,
of course, the satellite internet is not very conducive.
Well, that's true.
Downloading you anyway. Yeah, but imagine if we could have chronicled our experiences much better, other than just like writing those postcards to families or running our own blogs on the side. I started my website by opening up it was a blog spot at the time, to just basically say like that I was alive and the things that I was doing.
That's what I did too. That's how I got into kind of like travel photography and writing after that.
Yeah, and think about all of the amazing, like, most people were completely changed in their trajectory, went a totally different direction after Semester at Sea, because it's such a life-changing opportunity, and the things that you've learned are incredible. Evidence mounts of what you know about the world and how you're going to use it. And if there were more emphasis on chronicling that and translating that to another audience, not only would it help them with marketing, but it would also just help every student be able to better explain that this is not just like a booze cruise. It's a really difficult program, and it teaches you so much on top of just what you're doing in the classroom. And this is exactly what I think. I think there's a complete parallel between TGS and Semester at Sea in that. And it's just hard because we expect our kids to do so much. They have so much learning, so much content to cover, so many skills to develop, and then they also have the world at their hands that they need to experience and learn from. Yeah. So they get kind of overloaded, and then they want everything to look perfect because of their just where they are. I mean, everyone wants their online space to look awesome, but they don't know how to set aside time and to learn the skills in order to make it that. Right. But you could have a workshop or something that supports the development of a space where they can demonstrate that the learning from this program, so that they come away with an amazing portfolio. And that I would suggest, like, give them a couple options for different platforms, like WordPress.com, Weebly, Wix. What are the other ones that our kids use? I think that's basically it. But there's plenty of them. There's a lot of really visual ones. There's like Jinx or something.
Squarespace is a pretty
Yeah,
common.
Squarespace our kids are getting into. But that's if you want to already pay for it and you're committed, it's definitely a good option. So you could do, I would suggest if you have kids who want to do that, having either an optional or required workshop where they can really develop that with a couple example platforms, and then giving them an idea of what needs to be in it, like an about page, and then something explaining the program, what they did, and then posts of the evidence of their work, and then you can tell them like how tags and categories work and how to make your
Right.
navigation really work with that. And
Okay. I filled up 3 pages so far.
it's yeah.
So
Anyway.
I guess, well, first, I know I'm taking up a lot of your time, and thank you so much for doing this.
No problem. Yeah, I'm good.
I would love to hear a little bit more about your own experiences with CGS, just because I think that the school sounds awesome, and some of the stuff you've done sounds super cool. I'm excited to see your movie when you eventually make it
Thank
available.
you.
So I guess if you don't mind, just a minute or two telling me a little bit about like what has worked or what hasn't worked, if there's any like common pitfalls, time sinks, stuff like that. Because I don't have a ton of experience working with high school students, honestly, and the people facilitating SU do, but I'm the one kind of trying to get them to get into the storytelling aspect, and it's my responsibility to kind of make sure that we have some good media output from this, and just in terms of actual content, not like press coverage. So I don't know. I think what you're doing sounds like so much fun. I just want to hear more about it.
Yeah, it really is, and it's as challenging as it is cool. That's like my line that I always say, because it's hard to put into words what this experience has been for me for the last couple of years. The development of the lab, where the kids are supported in different types of communication methods and use of different technology, was totally born out of the need to give the kids the time and the space to process their experiences and to have some sort of record of it, so that they don't forget, so that they don't look back at Germany and what was Germany? What did I do in Germany? I totally forget. I was so busy working on the daily grind that I don't remember. Sorry, I think there was a vacuum or there was a bad internet connection, and I kind of missed the stuff that you wanted to hear about.
Oh, it was just like specifically with your own experiences, anything that has worked really well in terms of getting the kids like excited about sharing stories, and any like pitfalls that you might be able to tell me to avoid that are like common time sinks or things that kids get really distracted with that aren't necessarily important or as valuable. Yeah.
So the things that will work against you are if you don't give them the time and the space to work. They probably won't identify that time and space on their own, because when they're free, they just want to like talk with their friends. So if you develop the time and space in a nice working environment where they can ask you a lot of questions, technical questions that you can help them answer, and then like really spark their thinking about like what they could create. So if you had like a list of media types, if you said like here are a couple different apps you can use, if you really like visuals, go with that. If you really like writing, like here's a great iPad writer or whatever. If you give them those options and then you give them a little bit of time and space to work on it with you as a resource, they end up producing a lot faster.
Okay, that makes sense.
If let's see, the things that they get excited about are there's a moment right after an experience where they're the most jazzed, and if you can capture that moment, you will get the kind of emotion and evidence of learning that you want, and they're going to be all for it. So for example, let's say you have a really meaningful lecture going on in that first week, and it ends at 6 o'clock, and then people mostly go to dinner at 6:37. And if you set up like some sort of camera or vlogging station in order to say like, guys, who's most excited about that lecture? Like, who got amazing ideas? Do you mind talking to the camera over here? Or do you want to go vlog about it right now before you forget? And then you capture that special moment, you will get like kids looking like this on camera, and they're really excited, and you know, they get that. But if you let them go to dinner and then you say, like, you know, think about it, come in like next day midday, and they've had a workshop the next morning, and then it's like
Right.
before lunch and they have time, you are not going to get the kind of quality of reflection that you did in that moment.
Okay.
So there's a video I made called Getting Lost in Berlin, and our kids, as a way to discover Berlin, it was like our first weekend in Berlin, and we wanted them to just get a lay of the downtown area. We gave them a scavenger hunt, and we put them in small groups. And I was at the like end checkpoint waiting for them. And whenever they signed in and they were like, that was awesome, they like turn in their receipts or whatever, and they're getting ready to just chat with each other about what they did, I said, who was most jazzed about that experience? You, come over here, let's talk. And then I put the mic on them, and I had them sit outside, and the kind of reflection I got from them was like money. And it's all because I captured them at that moment. And I don't know, I need like a good term for what that moment is. Not like a pregnant moment, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I do. You should coin that.
But a pregnant moment's something else. I forget.
Yeah.
It's moment where anything could happen, right? Oh, that's a photography term. That's like a photojournalism term. But if you take advantage of that time for any sort of video documentation, or to give them the time and space again, just to process and put on paper or in some form what they're thinking at the time, and then you move on to the next thing. Like a massive word in the world of education right now is reflection. And if used improperly, then kids despise the word reflection because they think it's just like, you did something today, and now tell us what you did today. And it seems just like, well, I woke up at 6, and then I did this, and then you know, this guy talked, and it's just like making a list of what you've done today. So if you don't give them a sense of what reflection really could be, which could be any media form, and it could just be like what's on your brain at this moment, could be in the form of a dialogue, it could be a discussion amongst a couple people, could be in a big setting, could be individual, but it allows them to process what they're thinking and then to do something with it. That's when reflection really works for you, and that people know the value of it. Right. And I'm at that point now where I have seniors who have been here for 2 to 4 years, who have seen so much, who have been asked the whole time to tell us what they thought about an experience, make a note somewhere, reflect on it, put it to good use. And they've always been like, oh my God, we have to reflect on everything. But it's because they're experiencing so much and they need to process it somehow, and then that also provides them documentation. And now I'm getting kids who say, I really wish we didn't overuse the word reflection because I totally get the value, and I'm sad that at one point I developed a negative connotation for that word because it's so valuable. And otherwise you don't know what happened to you at the end of the day. And that could happen at a program like this where you're kind of on a high because you got into it and you're around amazing people and you're operating at a level that's beyond what you just would in a classroom or in a high school level. You really want to be able to process how special it is at that time, and then to leave having some closure from that experience and knowing where you're going from there. So reflection's a huge word that we've used and abused, but also really started to own and understand at TGS, and giving students the time and the space and and prompting them with ideas or ways of demonstrating that reflection has proved really fruitful for marketing purposes, but more importantly for helping students learn and develop over their time in the program.
Yeah, I think the point about having closure is extremely valuable because, I mean, I think about semester at sea, for instance, and you get so emotionally drained and so overwhelmed that you can't process everything. You kind of shove stuff aside mentally and you don't really like think about how that actually impacted you. And maybe it comes back years later, or maybe you just kind of like you lose the memory of it because you didn't like think about it. I mean, I've had, you know, when I'm hanging out with friends from semester C, they'll talk about some experience that I was present for, and I'm like, I don't remember that at all. And it's something like that I would absolutely remember and think was important, but for some reason, probably just because I was so overwhelmed, I didn't store that piece, that story.
Yeah, I think the stories that you chronicles soon after in some way, shape, or form are the ones that are cemented in your brain as like travel memories or things that you can note as like a lesson learned. And
Right.
I use a lot of analogies and a lot of like common phrases, not cliches, but like I make my own cliches all the time. That's just the way that I need to express myself. And those all come from the things that I've made in the last 5 to 10 years, that like my writing or the videos I've made, that I just remember so well because it's like a chronicle of that
Right.
experience. So yeah, students run the risk of experiencing too much, not thinking enough about it, or not letting it process, so that it just kind of goes out the other ear.
Right.
And I also left a semester at sea kind of reeling because I all of a sudden was gone from the friends that I had made and felt so close to, and I'd been in China, which was like crazy chaotic, and then Japan, which was crazy like controlled
Yeah.
and organized, and then Hawaii for a day where everyone spoke English and there was spam everywhere, and then back home where I'm seeing my parents and I'm excited they're there, but I'm sad my friends are gone, and I'm in Napa Valley and it's so clean, and I'm remembering China and it doesn't make sense, and I was
Hmm.
like crying all the time because I hadn't gotten closure, and I didn't know how to use the experiences that I had, or the thoughts. I didn't know what I was thinking about a place. And
I think that's the reason why semester C students get so depressed when they get home, because that last like week is so ridiculously chaotic. You can't like, they should have like at least 48 hours of straight up like reflection and meditation, because it's like the only way to kind of prepare yourself for finishing.
yeah, and even though we spent the final 2 weeks for our voyage, we're on the same voyage, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, Spring of Seven, right?
yeah, the final 2 weeks were like at sea, but we still had exams and we were packing.
Yeah.
There was just so much going on, and that happens here too. Um, I'm particularly nervous about my seniors who are wrapping up their IB exams this week and next. Then they are going to travel in Japan, and then they have graduation, the first graduation TGS has ever had, and then we have 2 weeks of Africa, and then they go home. And there's so much that's like the pinnacle of their academic career, something they've been worried about for years now about their IB exams, and then just a whirlwind of experience. And it's also one of the most meaningful transitions in their life. And then they're going to plop back on their couch at home on whatever day they get home in June, and not be around their friends anymore, and know that they're not about to go see them in 2 months' time again. And it's
Hmm.
going to be a weird moment, but if they haven't had the chance right now to start wrapping their head around who they were when they came, what they've experienced, who's been here with them, what they're going to do next, or what skills they've acquired over this time in order to be able to handle what happens next and be productive, be a constructive part of society, and then move on to the next thing, knowing that the best is still yet to come. That's what they
Hmm.
need. And so I've been really trying to do that with them. Like, we're climbing Kilimanjaro, which is crazy, um,
Yeah. When do you
and
do that?
that's in like a month. And
You
so
must
we're
be
helping them train, and then I also am just having a lot of conversations with them about what they're climbing for, who they were when they first came here, did they ever think they'd be able to do something like this, giving them writing prompts, letting them be together so they can like just reflect and process. Without that time, I think they're going to look back at these last 2 months and just think, what happened? And not know what to do with putting aside or putting in the past this incredible opportunity that they had to travel around the world for their high school experience. So as well for this could be the highlight of a student's like
right.
career and education so far. And without the opportunity to really process daily um, what they've learned and what they're going to do with it, could be also difficult to come home and know what to do next.
How do you get them to you like with the example of Kilimanjaro, you had said like kind of reflecting even ahead of time, like kind of to prepare them for that experience,
Hmm.
which I think would be hugely valuable in helping them process that experience while it's happening and afterward, like just kind of mentally preparing, what do you expect, what do you hope to take away, how can you derive the most benefit from this experience? What kind of prompts do you give them to get them kind of thinking that far forward?
Well,
Because
I think
I
it's
think that's something that we haven't given enough thought, and I'm just now realizing that.
yeah, I think it's easier for me because I know the kids who I'm working with, and
Right.
I've seen them over the course of 4 years develop. I mean, I saw them at the very end of their freshman year for most of them, and know where they've come, and so I know what to kind of like
Yeah.
jumpstart. But for your kids, those kind of surveys would be valuable in order to know, help them start thinking about what they're going to do when they're here. But it would also be interesting to maybe facilitate a couple one-on-one or group chats where they could where you could facilitate like an interesting conversation before you go in order to approach it with the best head on their shoulders, where they know. I remember I remember these experiences the best because we talked about them after, like at the end of every night around a campfire or whatever. If they start realizing that I will gain the most if I apply this way of learning or processing in this
Right.
environment. And those prompts you might come up with them just organically in a discussion, or like what age group is this? Not just high school, but is it like seniors or juniors?
No, well, we're working just with the high school students. I expect that most of them will be juniors and seniors.
Okay. Okay. Which is probably better in terms of knowing that you don't have to do so much facilitation of what ways they can process, like that you're probably more inclined to process in one way or the other,
Right.
and if you give them a prompt, they know what to do rather than like, okay, but I don't know what you want. Like, do you want me to write it down? Do you want me to like write you an email or whatever? Um, yeah, I don't know what to say about the prompt stuff if you don't know the kids and if you're not in the same physical space. But
No, that's all right. I'll talk to. I won't be there facilitating. I'm going to try to be more hands-on with the kids. I do kind of want to talk to them and help them process some of the stuff because I know that the facilitators there will also be very overwhelmed. But we do have the same people doing it this year as did it last year. So that's obviously to our benefit to kind of figure out a little bit what we can do to better prepare the kids ahead of time, and just kind of being preparing ourselves and preparing the kids to process information. So
wait, interview the 5 kids that were in the last one, maybe. Like maybe you could send out a survey to them.
yeah, we're working on getting some like just kind of like recaps of their experience through blog posts or whatever. But do you have any like pointed questions that you would suggest for them? It's okay if not. I'm just trying to think like
You could ask them 1 year later, what are the lessons that stick, or about yourself, what you learned about yourself or about the content, what lingers today. Um, what do you remember best or most? You can get a sense for how people learn best, and maybe what they say is a surprise and it's more about like a conversation they had with another kid in the program or with an adult or with one of the lecturers, or if it was actually something during one of the workshops. Um,
yeah, I think like what was the most impactful moment, perhaps, just kind
mhm.
of
Yeah.
awesome.
Well, I'll try to think if there are any other applications that I would suggest. Like I was really going for like Web 2.0, iPad or iPhone, but there's also plenty that I'm used to on the
Yeah,
Mac.
that's my interest. I think my main interest is the app-based stuff, just because it's the most accessible and they can do it whenever things are fresh in their mind or they have a few minutes that they want to spend, working on that sort of stuff.
Hmm.
And it's also just, I mean, like I use my phone a lot for photography, way more than I use my SLR, and it's just because it feels like less work and it feels like less of a barrier.
Hmm.
to just like tinker with my fingers rather than needing to worry about camera settings and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to go about it. Like if they're moving around or just in this environment that's like fast paced, it's kind of like mobile learning, and that's definitely on the smaller devices, the mobile devices that you're streamlining that process of documentation.
Is there any way, will I also have access to the recording of this in any way?
Of course, it'll be public.
On YouTube's?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yep. Well, I'm so glad this seemed fruitful conversation on my end. I actually had a great time.
I feel like I'm not offering you enough knowledge in exchange for this amazing brain dump you just did on me, because this is like way more than I was hoping for, honestly. I'm really excited.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I mean, I tell especially my older kids who have now kind of figured out the way that they process information and the medium that they like the best, that you don't really know you have that skill until you can teach it. And so for me, this, like, applying our lessons learned of digital storytelling and inspiring high school students or supporting high school students to do digital storytelling and chronicling their experiences and processing information, applying that to a different context has helped me realize that this is that we've learned quite a bit over the years, and that there are some things that I wish we would have had when we were on semester at sea or in high school or in any other program. So yeah, it's definitely beneficial for me to hear it work in different contexts. And I'm going to be curious to see how it goes in the moment, and let me know if you have any other questions about setting up vlogging stations or about any different kinds of guidelines for students regarding like what a mind map is, like how to make it, like different ways of making an infographic or what they are, or any of that. I've set up a lot of different like basic guidelines that enable the kids to work within certain confines and know that they're producing something, not just like regurgitating information. Like a blog is this, an infographic is this, and it's all actually available on my Spot group. I can send you the link, or I'll post the link in this video to my.
Yeah, that'd be great. What do you do for your vlogging stations? You just like open a laptop with something to record the video, or what do you? Are you talking about like, where you're sitting there with your camera, or what? What do you do?
I've actually never done a vlogging station with my kids. Instead, I do stand-ups, and so I actually like film it with like a DSLR or a camcorder and a mic usually. But I've done that before with different video projects, and then sometimes when the kids have a speaker or there's a certain thing that they need to explain, I just have them all disperse with their computers, and because they all have the same tools, I can just tell them to go off and do it rather than provide them with the tool to do it.
Okay. Awesome. Well, boy, thank you so much.
I'm glad this was helpful.
You're going to get some more emails from me, definitely, at some point.
That's cool with me. All right, well, it was great talking to you, and I'm really excited to see the progress of this program and what your students do with digital storytelling, and curious to know any other apps you identify along the way, because that would certainly be good to share with my kids as well. And I also have like bookmarks on my site that talk about different ways to visualize, different Web 2.0 tools to use. So hopefully that can be a benefit as you continue to think about the options for your students.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. I'm gonna spend some time processing, I think, and then kind of going from there.
Okay. Cool.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Really good to see you again.
Yeah, you too. Thanks so much.
Have a great day in Japan.
Thank you very much. Have a great night in Chicago.
I will. Thanks.
Bye.